with me to talk about this is Jackie Garcia, immigration attorney with Lincoln-Goldfinch Law in Austin, Texas. Ms. Garcia, thank you for being with me.
Hi, Rick. Thank you for having me.
All right. So what is the Supreme Court, what it's done today, how does that affect the state of Texas? I'm not excluding other states on purpose. I'm just trying to focus on our audience. What's this mean for Texas?
Well, it actually doesn't alter the status quo very much. The Supreme Court decision really just restores what we've always had, which is prosecutorial discretion. And so it means that the state of Texas will continue through its ICE enforcement and removal operations and its DHS attorneys at the immigration court. The state of Texas will continue to see those law enforcement agencies and those law enforcement officers make case-by-case decisions about whether or not to remove someone, as they always have.
Okay, so are you telling me the Supreme Court decision changes nothing? It won't have an impact?
Well, there's never been a suit like this before, and that was part of the decision. And, the quote from Justice Kavanaugh, who is a conservative judge, said that nothing like this had, this argument about standing in Texas being able to challenge this executive branch order and this guidance memo. This had never been brought before, and that's because it has always worked. We've always had prosecutorial discretion. It makes sense for the executive branch to determine how to allocate resources for executive issues like immigration, which is not a state issue. It's something that the federal government has always decided how to handle. It is a national issue. It is not a state-specific issue. And so really, it just maintains the status quo there.
Okay, which brings me to my next question. I've had many conversations with Governor Abbott and Dan Patrick, Lieutenant Governor, then Attorney General Paxton, and people at a federal level. Does this country have an immigration law or not? I mean, I know Mexico does because I went through it for the listeners. What about us? I mean, it seems sort of out there in the ether someplace. Do we have an immigration law or not?
Yes, of course we do, and we always have. That just like we have criminal and civil laws, this sort of prosecutorial discretion and determining who's a priority for enforcement, who isn't, those are things that work, and they've always worked, and they're a part of our legal system, whether it's in civil cases being settled, if it's in the criminal context with pleas, and, charges being dismissed or charges being reduced. This is how we keep cases moving. This is how we keep the courts from being overwhelmed. It's an essential part of the law. And when we treat everything like a priority, we're really saying that we're not treating anything like a priority. If we treat every single type of offense with the same gravity, then we're really spreading so thin our resources that we can't focus on the types of things that do really need to be addressed. It would be like sending a SWAT team to someone's house for an arrest warrant for not paying the ticket or failing to appear in court. That would cause outrage. We don't do that in the civil or criminal context. We have other ways of handling things when the threat to society and the potential harm is not as severe as other things. That way we have the resources to send specialized forces, law enforcement officers, and other tactical teams to go after people who really need to be apprehended. It's the same thing in the immigration context. We don't need to be spending all of these resources carrying out deportations against people who do not pose a threat to society, who have not entered the United States recently, and that's per the memo that affects people who entered since November 1st, 2020. So, I have thoughts about that as well, but we really, this is something that we've always had in our legal system, and it's important for it to be able to function.
Well, let me ask you this. What was it, June? Was it June or July of last year? We had 234,000 people representing over 150 different countries come across primarily into Texas, other states, other border states, but primarily in Texas. We don't have enough people to vet that many people so that we can assure the people that already live here, those that are waiting for their hearings, those citizens that are here. I mean, who decided, okay, this is a good thing? 234,000 people in a 4-week period. There's no way you can vet them and then assure the American people that you don't have drug smugglers or human smugglers or, I mean, how do you get to a point where the numbers just make you dizzy?
Sure. And I mean, we've got over 2 million cases in immigration court, people who have been waiting for years and years for their political asylum cases to be heard. I mean, I don't disagree with you there. We do have a lot of cases and a lot of people who need representation. And, you know, it is a really big challenge. The things that we can do, which the Biden administration has been doing, is creating family reunification processes and, you know, an asylum process that can be done before the person presents at a port of entry or crosses the border. You know, those sorts of programs are where we should be focusing our attention to sort of get ahead of any, you know, any rush to the border that might become a little bit difficult to manage.
Yeah.
Right? We can do those things affirmatively.
Well, what about this? I mean, for whatever reason, people don't give it the time of day. I mean, we're a sovereign nation. How about we call a moratorium on all new entries until we can at least get partially caught up? And you said it correctly yourself. People have been waiting years and will wait years for their hearing. How about a moratorium on anybody coming in until we at least make some impact on what we're dealing? I mean, even the IRS did that. I would think that we would be smart enough to say, okay, we've got more than we can handle right now. We've got more than we can handle in the next decade right now. Maybe we shouldn't be adding to it, but instead, let's do a temporary moratorium until we can chip away at what we've got.
That's not going to be possible because of, you know, other laws and, you know, the UN Refugee Convention and, you know, international agreements that supersede anything that the state of Texas or even the country might want. You know, we have an obligation to process asylum seekers and unaccompanied minors. We can't put a moratorium on that without, you know, violating human rights. And those are things that we have said as a nation. So
it's going to get worse before it gets better, is what you're saying.
I think it could. I think the programs that we have now that we're seeing for Cuban patients, Venezuelans, Nicaraguans, the programs that we have for Ukraine, Afghanistan, the family reunification efforts, those are definitely helping to alleviate the situation. And I think we need more programs like that. We need to think a little bit out of the box. We need to get ahead of it and think about what is needed and what the next wave of crisis might be and where, and put some things in place. But what we keep doing is putting a Band-Aid on things and then wondering how we got here. But these patterns of, you know, people leaving and fleeing violence and political instability, that's never going to stop. And we always know what countries are being affected. So if we can be a little bit more proactive, we can alleviate, if not, you know, I won't say completely avoid, but we could definitely alleviate some of the stress that it's going to put on the border.
All right. Jackie Garcia, immigration attorney, Lincoln-Goldfinch Law in Austin, Texas. Thank you for your time.